This episode of Recording Studio Rockstars is brought to you by Isotope, Atom Audio, Native Instruments, Lewitt, Spectra 1964, and OWC. You're hearing my voice right now on the Lewitt Pure Tube microphone through the Spectra 1964 STX 100D mic pre and C610 complementer mixed with Isotope RX, Ozone, Neutron, and Nectar, all recorded safely onto an OWC SSD and mixed on Atom Audio monitors. Please check out our awesome sponsors using the link in the show notes. It's a great way for you to help support this show. Now get ready to rock.
I think the best combination is when you can understand the professionalism but still have the playfulness. It's very quick that we can lose ourselves in this working mindset, and I think real magic happens in both the playfulness and the way to always access this creativity and this feeling of having fun, enjoying it.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Howdy, rock stars. I've got a secret to tell you about how I get a consistent sound mixing over 1,000 hours of recording studio rock stars. My secret is using Isotope, RX, Ozone, Neutron, and Nectar to make this podcast sound great. Right now, you're hearing RX breath control, declick, declip, DS, deplosive, voice denoise, Ozone multiband compression, Neutron EQ, and limiting, all from Isotope. Go to isotope.com and use the secret code ROCK10 to get 10% off. My studio is proudly powered by OWC, and I love how it's improved my workflow. OWC can connect all your audio work drives, trackballs, mix controllers, MIDI keyboards, audio interfaces, displays, or cameras so that you can work fast and focus on making your best record ever. Go look at the Mini Stack STX, Thunderbay 4, or Gemini Thunderbolt 3 dock at maxsales.com/rockstars to find the perfect solution for your studio from OWC. And thanks for using our custom link in the show notes. Howdy, rock stars. It's your host, Lid Shaw, and welcome back to Recording Studio Rockstars, the podcast bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today is Ady Parzentny, a musician since the age of 11. He switched to production and recording music in 2017, specializing in location recording, remote mixing, and producing, both writing and composing songs for and with artists worldwide. Ady spent 2 years in Morocco during COVID times, and he was supporting local artists with 50-plus singles and music videos, and 2 full records and 6 live shows, all recorded and with videos shot and everything. That's all something that you can find on his YouTube channel, Hit the Road Music. Ady also partnered with Warren Huart at Produce Like a Pro in 2020 and provided 20-plus music production tutorials on Promix Academy and Produce Like a Pro Academy, created more content for his YouTube channel with documentaries about their travels and about recording all these incredible artists around the world. One of the records that they recorded hit number 10 on the charts in 2021 with Noam Vazana and her album Haber. Today, we're going to talk about producing world music for film and TV and recording music with a mobile studio, which I'm very excited about because this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart with my own past. And if you're curious to learn more about that, rock stars, check out the episode I did with Chris King, my musical partner and songwriting partner from my band, where we recorded music all around the US driving around with a car and a studio and stuff like that. So thank you so much to Chaz Root for making our introduction. I'm very excited to have Ady here on the podcast today. Please welcome Ady Parzentny to Recording Studio Rockstars. Ady, are you ready to rock yet again, my friend?
Let's rock it, Lidge. Thank you so much for the invitation. Very
good to have you here, dude. So Rockstars, for full transparency, it's really sort of a funny story because we're talking about recording. And this is like what, episode 426 or something like that for me. I might have the number off slightly by the time this comes out. But in all that time, I don't think I've ever forgotten to hit record. But as I started this interview with Ady, I think I was just so excited to talk about all this great music he was doing. I actually forgot to hit record. And I record in 3 places. So that's probably something that we should talk about too. Have you ever actually found yourself like, did you ever like miss a take because you forgot to hit record on one of these bands you've been working with?
Of course, man. Sometimes you're just so, it happens to everyone. We are just human. Sometimes you're so amazed and like, what's going on here? And I hope I pressed record. And I think I had it 2 or 3 times where I was really, really gone because the surrounding was incredible. I just couldn't believe this is really happening, Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember doing that on an actual session where I think I did hit record, but I had disabled the tape machine. So all the tracks weren't actually in record. And so we like missed a take and had to do it again. I like to say that when that legitimately happens and you don't record something and you have to do it again, there's a tendency for everybody to do a better job. So hopefully that's going to hold true for us right here. But anyway, I appreciate that. And sorry about that. So let me ask you this again. Give us a brief overview into your introduction into music and like getting to this point of recording all these great things. I think you said maybe 34 years old now. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
So was it really through your 20s and stuff, or did you start earlier in your teens getting interested in recording?
So at first, thank you so much for having me on your episode, because I think you're doing incredible work for the audio community, and I'm really happy that we can share our story here. So thank you so much for everything. My musical journey, like consciously, started with the age of 5 when I listened Rammstein for the first time, the song "Du riechst so gut," and it just blew my mind, like this energy. So I started on VHS tapes to watch Viva, MTV, Viva Plus in the evening, because they just showed the metal videos after 10 p.m.,
so you'd have to record them and then watch them the next day or something, or get somebody to record it for you?
I had to sneak in the living room when my parents were sleeping, and actually then I could record the Sex Pistols and the Clash and Iron Maiden, I can remember, was on my mixtapes. Yeah, and then I could watch it the whole day,
That's great. And so Rammstein is basically like heavy, heavy rock with super deep distorted guitars. Is it all like drop tuning and stuff like that, like lower tuning than E?
Absolutely. They are usually drop D, or they are even one note lower, depending on the tracks. Down to C, yeah.
C, the lowest of all rock keys. C is hard. I mean, I've done some, I think we did one song in C with the Living Things, which is a band I produced, and it was very tricky getting the tuning right down there.
Yeah, and that it stays in tune, because the neck is not made for it usually. So, yeah.
Now, we'll probably jump around a bunch here, but at least I'm recording this time, right? So you've now branched out and recorded all this amazing sort of folk music from all across the world. You spent a lot of time in Morocco, a lot of unusual instruments. Have you found that music from other parts of the world has a different tuning? In other words, I don't know, maybe this is the wrong way to ask this question, but are there a lot of instruments that are in a lower tuning than guitars that form the central part of the music you recorded?
We recorded fusion bands, and for example, in fusion bands where traditional music and electric guitars and modern music merges, there they are in tune with each other, while typical traditional bands and instruments, it's all tuned by ear, mainly to the drums. For example, how do you know that the drum kit is tuned? When you just make the sound with your mouth, then you have like a, but
right.
When you hear this tuning, this natural tuning that we have already in the traditional instruments, then you know that you are more or less in tune and then ready to record.
So in other words, is it sort of like you can't really tune the drum to the instrument, so you just tune the instrument to the drum? It's almost like doing a piano session sometimes in the studio where you're like, well, we can't really change the piano, so let's just all tune to the piano.
Exactly. Though for the traditional instruments like djembe or tebal, what they use, because it's a animal skin, sometimes they hold it over the fire and try to tune with the band to make it stronger. So when the musicians are very experienced, they know how long it has to be over the fire,
Yeah. So jumping forward a little bit, one of the very first things I recorded with my friend Chris, we used to throw a recording studio in the back of a car. And this is long before we had laptops. So, we were having to bring racks of gear and stuff.
Wow.
And we went up to go record a Liberian African. He grew up in the bush of Liberia. His name was Nyemakuma. Mm-hmm. And he was playing djembe and dancing. He used to be a dancer for the artist Ola Tunji in the 70s. And he would play his djembe and he'd tell us that like, oh, it's not in tune yet. Hold on. And he'd get a hair dryer sometimes and he'd like heat up the drum head. And I remember that was the first time I learned that like, oh, the drum heads are really affected. Well, particularly the old school drum heads or the actual real animal skin drum heads. I don't know if modern ones are more, able to stay in tune no matter what the weather is, but I imagine that the heat affects it just like any instrument.
Absolutely, it does. So the modern ones, the synthetic skins, it is also impacted on the way how the skin is mounted to the instrument, to the wooden instrument. So a second way to tune this instrument a little bit higher or lower, I invite everybody to open Google now, type in djembe, and you see that the animal skin is held by many strings. So you can just loose one string and put it under another one with a knot. So you tighten it as well. So you have a little bit more control over the tuning.
Yeah, sometimes you can do things like put a stick behind the strings, right? And that sort of tightens them a little bit.
Absolutely.
I think there are certain drums. My brother brought back, he traveled in Senegal and brought back a whole collection of drums. And I think a bunch of those had like the sticks all around the outside. So that was part of the tuning mechanism.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So like the djembe, if you're not certain which one is which, rock stars, the djembe is sort of big on the top and then it goes narrow and goes back. And so you could sort of stand it on the ground. You could put it up on your feet a little bit and play. A lot of times people put it between their legs. Mm-hmm. Would you say that's accurate, Ady? Did you find most djembe players would sort of hold the drum between their legs and just play the top of the drum on their lap?
Absolutely. It's either between the legs. And if you go, for example, to Guinea or Mali, where you have the huge orchestras who are playing the djembe, they have also straps. And you see the strong man just holding this massive piece of wood and pounding on it, the soul out. It's so there are two ways, more for the ballets and for the djembe orchestras or the djembe bands that are playing together. They're also holding it on straps on their shoulders.
It's wild. We were just talking to with Jermaine Stegall, who is a composer. And he composed all the music and recorded it for Coming to America, which was the film with Eddie Murphy in it. And they had to recreate all this music that had, gave you a feeling of being in Africa recording in a fictitious country there. But just interesting to think about like these, parallels between, a big Hollywood production and, there's somebody trying to figure out how to get a djembe to sound just right. and yourself, going and recording a djembe in Morocco. Boy, there's so much stuff to talk about, but let's, and I'll probably jump around a lot, but let's go back again to your introduction to just the recording studio in general. What was the first stuff you were recording? Were you in a studio at first before you decided to hit the road? Literally, no pun intended, hit the road with the studio? Or did you immediately start recording in living rooms and remote kind of situations?
So, shortly, like I started in 2 bands with the age of 11 and always played in bands. I was always musically involved. And my first experience in the record studio was as a client to make our CD. And also we recorded our first album actually when we were like 13 or 14 in the basement.
Wow.
So yeah, it sounds better than it is.
Now, did you guys you had access to internet? So when you made an album, you just put it right up on live streaming, or was it still a CD kind of situation at that point?
You remember this internet when you tried to log in and the sound came?
Oh yeah.
That was our internet.
Dial
so there
up.
Was no dial up. There was more curiosity when doing it. And what happened is that we borrowed a mixing desk from the music school for 3 days and just recorded in our basement and tried to figure out all the knobs, all the EQs, and we made 20 songs,
That's great.
And yeah, it was so much fun. So there was always something in the background. And yeah, it was from 11 until 21. We played with the band Insolvent. And then my travel started, and I was busking on the street in Berlin, living from busking for a while, and started traveling with my life partner. So the travels were actually before recording. We're traveling, now I'm 34, so we are traveling for almost 10 years.
Wow.
Through the world, even without camera, we were playing with Sinti and Roma musicians, having jam sessions, and always discovering the music or trying to figure out how this music works from all around the world, like going to libraries and
the thing I love about that is, the fun thing about music is there's something to love in everything. You know what I mean? So like I love discovering all the things that are capable when you're in the studio, when you're sort of inside the computer making music, mixing and composing and trying to really control sounds. But I also love everything that happens when you just forget about all that. And it's just people in a room and you're playing acoustic instruments. Maybe you're plugged in electrically, but everything is just sort of uniquely happening in a space. And that's what's reminded, for me, hearing you talk about the travels and recording. It's like when you just put yourself out there and you get together with jam with people. Sure, there's a lot of bad music that can happen too. Sometimes people... Oh, yeah. It's like not every drum circle is the greatest thing ever, Yeah. But I think more often than not, it's pretty awesome. As long as people listen. Listening is really key, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Man, I have to tell you this. We lived in Berlin and the band Chico Trujillo from Chile came. And I'm a big fan for many, many years. Apparently they played 3 shows in Berlin. So we saw them in the SO36. The legendary club. Next day they played in a squad. I haven't been there. I wasn't there. And the next day they were just playing outside at the Mauer Park in Berlin on a Sunday. We connected. We started to make a jam session. Apparently more and more people came. And we were 45 people at the end playing until 5 a.m. next day. There came people with congas. There came people, they just had chairs, they start playing on chairs, and this was a great thing. Man, this connection and this music, what was there, was amazing. That's why I love music.
Hey rock stars, have you checked out Native Instruments recently? Look, no matter what style of music you make, Native Instruments gives your studio everything you need, from drums, loops, and beats to the coolest synths, realistic strings, guitar amps, and futuristic synth pads. I personally love recording and tracking real bands in my studio, but then also adding awesome overdubs from Battery, Contact, Massive X, Super 8, Guitar Rig, and Hybrid Keys, for example. Go pick up Complete Start for free today with a bundle of 2,000 sounds and 6 gigs of samples over at nativeinstruments.com and use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off. Some restrictions apply. Atom Audio can provide all your monitor needs, whether you're setting up a first-time home studio for recording music or podcasts, or a world-class full-size studio for professional mixing and mastering in stereo or immersive sound. Featuring the XART tweeter and custom DSP onboard processing, the A-series monitors will perfectly adapt to your studio. Get the Atom Audio monitors and subwoofers that are right for you with an extended 5-year warranty at atomaudio.com. Yeah, you know, I feel like I saw more of that when I was traveling around Canada or traveling around Europe, these sort of impromptu drum circles and jam sessions and things like that. I do see a little bit of that here in the US or in Nashville even, but sometimes living in a music city like Nashville, I feel like I'm missing out on something because maybe I'm overthinking it, but sometimes when you're in a place where everybody's thinking about music professionally, it's like everybody's focused on this, you know, controlling what they do and intention and everything. And it's like, it's really fun when the only motivation for music is just that it feels good.
Definitely. And I think the best combination is when you can keep both worlds, when you understand the professionalism, but still have the playfulness, that you don't forget the roots, you know? Yeah. It's very quick that we can lose ourselves in this working mindset and this, in a way, also insecurity, probably hidden insecurity that okay, I have to work now, I have to be strong, I have to be professional. I think real magic happens in both. When you have the playfulness and the way to always access this creativity and this feeling of you know, having fun, enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, so tell us a little bit more about getting to the first, field recordings for you. What was the first time you did something where you went and recorded something really unusual and you just thought, wow, this is cool?
Absolutely, man. So I ended up somehow in the office and really missed the connection with musicians. And I turned 30, and it was just logical in my mind to become a producer. I had because I still had a lot of punk bands, but I loved also the other part of music, Sinti and Roma music, all kinds of music, even EDM or hip hop and rap. And I thought, as a producer, I can work with everyone. That's the great thing. You don't have to find a niche in this way. So it was again curiosity to watch how equalizer work, watch how compressors work. Ordering my first microphone, bought it on eBay. Hey, what is that? The condenser mic. Okay, cool. Well, how does it sound when I put it there? How does it sound when I put it here? When I go closer? And step by step, I ordered a dynamic mic. I ordered 2 small pencil condensers and got a small collection of microphones and thought, okay, time to record. And this was in Poland. So at first I recorded my own bands to learn how it works and got some very young metal bands and said, I'm going to record you for free in these rehearsal rooms that you can rent per hour. So we talk with the owner from the rehearsal rooms if we can record at night, because usually at night nobody's renting it. He made us a good price. I took the young guys there. I could learn how to record drums, messed it up completely, learned how to fix it, And this is how the first experience started until I got better and recorded better bands.
What do you remember about messing up the drums? What were some of the first mistakes you remember making in recording that might, be familiar to the rock stars, or you might even help them avoid making the first mistake too?
Absolutely. The first mistake was my pre-production sucked. It was really bad. Like because I was like, hey, you're a drummer, you know how to play drums? Did you learn this song? He said, yes. Do you can play at night? Yes. You don't get tired? No. And this was the pre-production. And then he came at night. He's like, I'm tired. I didn't learn the song. I'm like, oh my God.
And you guys are all teenagers at this point too?
I was, 2017. I was like 28 or something. He was younger. Okay. He was still student, But
that's funny.
this was hilarious. So I learned about the importance of pre-production, communication with the band, maybe meeting up and see if they rehearsed, to give you everything that they or to guide them how to prepare for a record session. Yeah. Because many people don't know, in rehearsals it sounded all good because everybody's playing somehow everything, and in live shows maybe it's also good, but when you record it's a different mindset. Yeah, you have to be on time and all this nitty-gritty stuff. Maybe learn to play on a click. This would be great. So pre-production is the number one for everything. The second one, of course, with the microphones, I didn't have the best mics. So the first thing I learned is phase, to avoid phase issues, how to find out about phase issues before I record. That's also good. And there are like free plugins that you can use now. I didn't have them before. So I just, made the phase flip, checking everything against the overheads.
What, when you talk about phase issues, maybe break that down a little bit more for the rock stars so they know how you're referring to it.
Oh yeah, definitely. And this is also important when recording live bands and location bands. Phase issues, audio can come to the microphone in two different ways, either plus or minus. Like when we all check the sound wave, it goes up and down. When it goes up, it's plus. When it goes down, it's minus. And
that correlates to the speaker moving out or moving in.
Exactly. When the sound comes in a positive way, the speaker will be pushed out. When it comes in a negative way, it gets sucked in. So we want to make sure that the sound in every microphone comes at the more or less same time and in the same way, like that it's as much as in plus as possible. Because what can happen is when it's not in phase, means there are two different phase, like the minus and the plus, it can cancel out sound, and it's very hard to mix it later, and you don't get the full potential of the speaker also, because you can imagine in the speaker physically it would push it in and suck it in at the same time. So it's not to the full potential. I think this is the best way to visualize it.
Yeah, and so what are some of the ways that you can check phase? So let's describe the recording situation. You're talking about a situation where you have multiple mics in the same room, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And does phase matter if the mics are not in the same room? In other words, does how do I ask this question? If you record an overdub at one time versus something else, is it important to check the phase then there too? Or is it really most important to check it when you've got, a bass amp and the drums in the same space because they could be fighting each other?
I mean, phase is always important. It's a very overlooked part between all the fancy and cool plugins that we all love. If your overdubs can be in phase too, this would be amazing. But you can do it still in post-production. Even when somebody somewhere else is sending you the files, you can fix the phase. You can flip it from negative to positive and positive to negative. And you can also move it around in your DAW as good as possible.
Yeah, and then you were talking about some of the plugins. So there's, there's things like In Phase from Waves.
Mm-hmm.
There's, what are some of the other ones? There's also
I'm using from Isotope, the Ozone Imager.
Yeah.
And this have a phase correlation meter. This is what you want to look for, a phase correlation meter. And there are two different kinds. There is an easy one that have three numbers. It's the +1, it's the 0, and the -1. And I'm always having it on the master bus because then I can check the phase, the overall phase of my track when recording. And +1 means it's in phase. All your tracks are in phase. But when you go towards 0, you start to have problems and you should adjust the mics. And by -1, you have elements that are out of phase, but you don't know what, or you don't know where. So there is another one, I think it's from Voxengo, and this is a multi-band phase correlation meter, which shows you what frequencies are out of phase. Like this, you can get closer to the source. And imagine when you have issues in the low end, and let's say you record the bass and the drums at the same time, maybe you rather check the microphones where the low end is in, if there are any issues with phase. So these are two little helpers.
So an interesting thing about phase is when something sounds wide in stereo, I think by definition that means that it's not perfectly in phase, right? If it has a sense of width, then that means there's a difference between what's going on in the left and the right. And so it's interesting to think about how you could want to have a low end that is in phase so that it's impactful, but maybe certain frequencies in the mids or the upper, it's okay for them to be different so that it gives a sense of space and width. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. So let's see, tell us about your studio. What is a portable studio for you? Tell us about what you took. Well, first of all, tell us about embarking upon this journey to go do Hit the Road music. What felt like the beginning of that whole thing to you, and then also describe the studio that you took with you.
So the beginning was with every job, I invested the money back into a little bit better gear, another interface. So I have 16 inputs, and I got better gigs with local bands in Poland. And it was more or less like a year of basement hopping. I still had my office job 4 days per week, and 3 days per week I was in the studio. And in the evenings after my job, like daytime job as well. So it took a lot of time there. What I realized after a year is it was about, do I open the studio in Poland? Or do I find something else, like another thing? And this is where I really need to connect to my intuition. And because I knew when I open a studio now with the rates that they pay in Poland, and it's compared to the US, it's a very small scene that is there in Krakow, that I also didn't really resonate it with. It wasn't really abundant thinking. It was more panic thinking, like, oh my God, this guy is coming now and the people are happy with him. He gonna steal us our clients. While I think there is everything for everyone. Like, this world is so huge. Got more abundant mindset. So I needed a solution, because I also don't really want it to sit in a dark room for the next 5 years until it works. And what I do usually is I ask the question before I go to bed, like asking for a solution. What can I do? And one day I just woke up like at 1 a.m. and damn, we can travel and record at the same time. It should work. This is what I do, actually. I'm just renting a room, bring all my stuff there. Like I had 8 microphones that I bought via eBay, mainly SM57s and one condenser and 2 small pencil condensers and, some cheap drum miking set for $30.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Funny. The SM57 was one of the first mics I took on the road too. It was a friend loaned it to me. He was like, "Here you go. Why don't you borrow this?" And I took it and I was like, "Oh, these are great."
Yeah. What a good friend.
Yeah. So very cool. So what about, what is a portable studio? When we went on the road, it meant, microphones, cables. I had to bring a mic preamp and I brought a DAT machine and we just recorded everything straight down to a DAT machine. But when you hit the road, it's probably a little bit different than that.
Definitely. So my portable studio to this time, 2 audio interfaces, affordable ones that go into my laptop, my Mac.
Why 2?
We had this. I had my first audio interface, and one of my clients, he wasn't happy when I came with it because it was it wasn't the best, Yeah. For me, it was cool. It was small. It had 8 inputs, and he asked me. He said, we continue to work together, but only if you get the better one. So I bought the second one with the payment, and I had 2, what was great because then I could make drum recordings. And this was one of my specialty because I learned to do pre-production and understand what people want. So there was this band in Poland, I drift up shortly. There was this band in Poland that wasn't happy with their old record. And I could see they are not happy. They're listening to their record and they are not happy. I thought, it's a nightmare. Let's say you put your full heart into your songs, you write them, you're going to record them. And the only thing, when you hear it, you play it to someone, it's like, oh, the producer didn't do this when we asked him to do it. We wanted to record the drums separately with the band and they didn't let us, I'm like, oh my God, this has a huge impact. So this band hired me and I asked them like, what you didn't like. And at first the drummer wasn't happy because they were forced to do this and that. So I said, okay, you know what? We're just going to rent a tower in an industrial building, put the drums up there, and we're going to put 16 microphones for you guys. I didn't use all of them, but it was along this thing that, hey, somebody cares.
Yeah.
Like somebody cares that something special is happening. The same with the guitar player. I saw he have, man, I love Piotr. He had like 25 guitar pedals and still looking for new ones, So, and 2 amps. So I thought, okay, what does the other producer did with you? He said, oh, we had the SM57 in front of one of my amps. I'm like, okay, well, that's not much for all the stuff you have, right? So I bought the split box, an active split box, so the signal didn't get lost on the way. We had 2 rooms, put 2 speakers there, 2 mics on every speaker, and it's overkill. But anyway, it's like 2 mics on every speaker, and then in the bigger room, MS recording. So we had at the end, I think, 4 to 7 microphones for the guitars, plus the DI out and 1 effect out. But they were super happy, They loved the sound, and they listened back to the record, and they're like, "Wow, yeah, you remember this day, man? He put 8 mics out for me,
Yeah,
you remember that? We were in this tower." And so with basic gear, this was all affordable gear that I bought used on eBay. Plus the laptop, I think this is the biggest investment. 2 interfaces, cables, mic stands, laptop, and couple of plugins.
Well, it's a good reminder,
a mobile studio.
It's a good reminder too that in some situations, it might be more effective to just have 8 SM57s so that you can properly record the band that you're recording versus one really fancy mic.
The fancy mics the fancy mics don't work on location recording because the fancy mics, they are amazing. Like after NAMM, we went to East West, and listened to the room in East West. And in East West studios, I want a fancy mic to record this room. I want the room in there. Yeah. But on location recordings, the rooms are crap. You don't want the room in your recording,
Yeah. So let's go to that. Let's talk a little bit about what are some of the best mic choices in general for mobile recording studios, and how important are things like pickup pattern and the all the extra that the mics will pick up in a recording.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the best example, last year we went to Armenia and recorded, for example, an orchestra. So Armenian orchestra, in their rehearsal room, it wasn't a room made for like specific for live shows.
Yeah.
So the best choice were all my dynamic mics, SM57s, Lewitt, MTP440s, all the dynamic mics I have. And then in the style of a Deca tree, I put 3 condensers over them. I have a tube mic. This tube mic, it would pick, again, way too much of the top end, way too much of the room, all the stuff all the detail that I actually don't want there. I think in this way, I have these 3 condensers to get the core of the orchestra. And if I need anything extra, I just bring in the SM57s for more detail.
Right, so the 57s become the close mics.
Exactly. These are the close mics that I put in front of the instruments, all pointing in the same direction. So they are all pointing in the same direction. So it's again also how to position the band. I think this was a 20-piece band. We don't have headphones for everyone. So there are things to consider. They have to see each other.
Yeah.
Which sections have to see each other? Like which are the most important? And how is the dynamic of the instruments? It's again pre-production that makes the sound in this way.
Yeah.
Where can I put the loud drums? You know, there was like a very loud drum part. I don't want to bleed in the flutes, so I put them as far away as possible. And yeah, handled it mainly with dynamic mics. As much dynamic mics as possible. The second thing is they have to be robust. You don't want your mics to break because we are by 50 degrees Celsius in the desert with a lot of sand. And then we are by -10 in the mountains, you know?
Yeah.
So your precious mic, you don't want your precious mic in your car.
Well, so that's interesting. So a couple of thoughts that come to mind when you talk about the condensers. Did you say small diaphragm condenser mics or did you use big ones? What was your choice?
I have big ones. I have this Lewitt LCT 540s, 3 of them, and the 440 Flex, 2 of them when needed. And pencil condensers, I think Lewitt 040s that I usually use on acoustic instruments or as room microphones.
Are you recording your own music or other people's music in your studio, but you're having trouble figuring out how to get your mixes to sound great? Do they sound kind of weak or distant or lack punch and clarity? Well, I've got a gift to help you take your mixes from sounding like basement demos to sounding much closer to professional mixes. And it's my free course called Mix Master Bundle. This course will show you how to get pro-sounding mixes from your home studio with free and stock plugins in Pro Tools, and the best part is that these mixing techniques work for you in any DAW, whether you're on Logic, Cubase, Studio One, Reaper, anything you can think of. If you're ready now to make your best record ever, then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, and you can find the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. What's interesting to me is being reminded that here you've got this orchestra, and you use the condenser mics, to capture the blend of everything. And the condenser mics they pick up the low end, and they pick up the high end, and they pick up the space and everything like that. But then for the close mics, something as simple as the SM57, and when we think about it, I think we're reminded that the SM57 really focuses almost like checking your mix on an NS10 speaker. It's really like, it really just gives you the mid-range, That's where you get most of the information. And the mid-range is also where the melody and the melodic aspects of music lives. So it's where the most of the balance information happens. So in a way, it's a very excellent choice for the close mic. So if you want to hear a little bit more or less of a particular instrument, or typically more, then the SM7 is a perfect choice because it's going to bring out the mids of that instrument and that your ear will identify it. You don't necessarily need like a lot more bass and a lot more treble and a lot more of the room or anything. You just want more of that instrument.
Man, I love that you throw it in because it's like this it's like the NS10s. The SM57 is like the NS10s and gives us the most important. I mean, the melody is the money, and
the melody is the money. I love it.
Yeah. So you want to hear it the most, and we had a lot of string instruments there. The SM57 was perfect for the tar, which is a long string instrument, and the oud, and it's a different mindset of recording. Instead of having all the most precious sound, which I love. I love to record the acoustic guitar as beautiful as possible in its full range. But when they play live, it's a different mindset, also mixing mindset. You don't go individually with every instrument up. You actually work your way up backward from the full image that you have, and then just check where do you want more definition.
Mm-hmm.
And there it's really the perfect choice because it's just cutting through. Honestly, on these orchestral recordings, there was only low cut EQs that I used to make space for the cello. There was not much that I had to EQ actually, because they EQ'd themselves along with the arrangement, but also with the mic choices.
Well, another thing that comes to mind too when you're talking about the EQ choices on different instruments, I don't know if low cut is by nature more phase coherent than other EQ curves, but it does remind me, like even hearing Steve Albini talk about this when recording drums, or just in my own experiences, when you're doing a lot of EQ to a bunch of different microphones, it really does start to mess with the phase of all those sounds too. And and one of the important things about getting a really focused sound in a live recording is phase coherency, like you said, between all those microphones. And by not boosting a lot of high end here or mid range over there, or changing all these phase relationships of the mics, I think it keeps the sound sounding real in the final mix and focused, having like a cohesion to the tone.
I absolutely agree. And I would love to share, I will take you guys on the road now.
Okay, great.
Because our first journey, it was we saved the money, we bought the camper van, we put all our stuff into the camper van, and hey, where are we going to go? I got 1 month off from my old job, like unpaid, just to not outrage anybody here. And we're like, where we want to go? And my life partner, Kasia, she just have always the best destinations. She's like, I never been to Morocco. I said, oh, let's go to Morocco. So let's do it. So this was our pilot in 2018, actually. And after a while, we just arrived in Morocco after a long journey, visiting Spain and Portugal, and running on the street and asking people if they want to record, And there was this Andalusian orchestra, they're called Andalicious, with musicians from Israel and Morocco, and they were playing together. And in a beautiful Riyadh this is the name of the houses in Morocco. They are like huge. There was a fountain inside. It was just gorgeous. And my only experience were like recording young metal bands. And they asked me, hey, do you want to make one? I said, yeah, let's just do it. Let's see what happens, And I was terrified. Like I just don't wanted to mess it up because they were like master musicians touring the world. And the recording went amazing. It was like, because they had like 3 shows per day. So I had to set everything in a circle, press play, 1 take, they stand up, go to the next show. I make.
Wow. Yeah. That particular video is beautiful, Rockstars. It looks like we're in a courtyard that's all tile covered in some beautiful house in Morocco, sort of tall, like multiple stories, people are looking down over the railings, and there's a fountain right in the middle of everybody with lotus flowers just floating in it, and everybody's playing in a circle around it. And I think that video had like almost 500,000 views on it too. So well done on that.
Oh,
I imagine
thank you so much.
That's a challenge, or I don't know if it's a challenge, but it's something that you probably notice. You might go record something that you really love over here, and it might have a few hundred views, and then you go record another artist in another situation, it's got a few 100,000 views. What is that like for you as far as the video aspect of it too, and who makes the video when you're doing all this stuff?
My life partner helped me so much with the video work. Like while I was, for example, for this particular video, we had like 3 cameras that she knew where to set them up. Like she put one on the top. This is where you see and thanks for watching it, by the way.
Yeah, it was great.
Man, this video is very special for me. I have a lot of lessons here to share for you. And so she put one camera on the top, press play, went down, put one camera that we had on the faces of the vocalists, and we borrowed the third camera from Roy, the banjo player. He gave us the camera, so she was walking at the same time. So it was just one take.
Yeah.
And later I'm doing the video editing. She's an angel because she's a visual artist and a painter. So she has the eye that I don't have. Like I would just put the camera, press play, like, hey, we recorded it.
Yeah. And Rockstar, just for clarity, Ady's saying press play, but he means press record. Same that we're
press record.
Recording on the.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Just make sure we didn't confuse anybody. Because in some instances, I think you guys did actually make, in quotes, like music videos where you actually did have to press play and then people played along and record the video and stuff like that. But so that was very cool. And one of the camera shots, well, first of all, kudos to Kasia for pulling that off, because it's hard to go press record on this camera and run downstairs, press record on this one, run over here, press record on the next one. And it's one of the challenges that I've run into doing music videos in the studio too, where you're like, if you're recording, you get used to the idea of, okay, we're rolling, go for it. But when you're doing the video thing, you have to be like, okay, are we all rolling? Are we rolling? Okay, now we're rolling. You have to like make sure you don't get ahead of anybody else, or you don't have something's not in record.
Definitely.
But,
and then
one of the videos
topic,
too had like close-ups of the melodica player and was moving around, and that was really cool.
Yeah, I'm so happy you enjoyed it. The next thing with video work is also, and I was so grateful that you don't want the extra video for this podcast, because I'm just struggling with frame rates. Man, to put them all together later and then with the audio, there is somehow always something happening. I'm just happy to, for example, in Armenia, I was so happy that we could hire a videographer. Yeah. Yeah, it's so much easier because they have pros in it.
You're talking about the challenges when you have multiple cameras and putting it all back together. Yeah, exactly. I've run into that too in the studio, especially when you have a Panasonic camera and then you've got a Sony camera and then you used an iPhone and you're like, just press record everywhere and go. And then you come back later and you're like, why is this version of the song a little bit shorter than this version of the song, And it's crazy. And I guess it's partly because of, like you said, it's just frame rates. Cameras, kind of, I guess it's the same as audio. I mean, audio are sample rates, which are, you're taking a lot of samples or less, depending on your sample rate. With camera, it's frame rates. The only difference is in audio, if your frame rate is, or if your sample rate is a little faster and it doesn't play at the same, it sounds like the pitch changes. But in visuals, it all looks like it looks normal, but it'll drop a frame every once in a while and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So big shout out to all the video editors. Respect.
Respect. Yeah.
Respect.
little Ali G quote there. Respect.
Definitely.
Yeah. So very cool. So what were some things that you discovered doing the Andalusius sessions? How did you manage miking up for all those instruments? If you had so little time to record them, was that a little bit scary that you were going to have to set up for them and you're like, what if something's missing? What if I don't have the mic in the right place? Stuff like that.
Everything was scary, man. For me, it was this very scary moment because, again, like the only experience were metal bands from a basement that I recorded. And now I'm here with these guys. So what is always a lesson for me is I do my best now. I have to stay conscious, breathe in, take it easy. there were wonderful people from the band who took the time one day earlier to tell me who is sitting where. So I could imagine at least like, okay, all the violins will be here. So I use small pencil condensers and these instruments will be here and there. And at this time I was limited to 8 microphones. I didn't have the second interface yet. I didn't earn enough until this moment. So we had just these 8 microphones. And I just had to imagine and hope that it works the way I imagined it. And in the mix, later in the mix, I never had like a mentor. Like I wrote to the studios in Poland, hey, can I come over and help you as an assistant or watch over your shoulder and so on. The doors were closed, definitely. So I went to YouTube and everybody was EQing everything wild. So I thought when they do it, maybe I have to do it also. So I started to EQ this stuff just to go back to the orchestra, what we said, like with the SM57, that it's naturally there already. But I was young and I thought I have to do something, It couldn't be just working in this way. And
right,
I had
you
no
thought
clue
you had to make changes in the mix.
Exactly. And I bought a plugin, so I should use it,
Right.
Another tip is also and now I really appreciate it. My listening environment wasn't so good. Like, I didn't have the best listening environment, or the way to listen back to the mix. So it was like a little bit like being blind and mixing it.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I wasn't experienced with Andalusian classical music,
Yeah.
So what really helped me is, again, artist communication. I mixed it. I sent it to Elad Levi, the director of the band. And this man is pure love, man. He was so patient. He called me back from Israel. He's like, Ady, it sounds good, but the violins, they sound like alien. Even a synthesizer violin wouldn't sound like that, Can you do something with it? And here are some references. And with every call, we had 20 revisions. With every call, he was so patient. And I learned the more plugins I took off, the better it sounded.
Yeah.
With every revision, I just took off these plugins and like, okay, actually this sound is here already. So I just bring this sound a little bit more here. And there is some bleed from this. Okay, probably everybody should be satisfied now. And like after the 20th mix and the 20th phone call with Elad, he's like, Ady, I'm very proud of you. you made it. Like you made it work. And this was a huge lesson for me to ask for feedback, because nobody, especially when you're not experienced, how should you know that something is good, or how do you want to make a good product when you don't have the experience and don't ask people and don't seek for feedback? And the second thing was I was mixing in an exhausting way, like until 2 or 3 a.m. At 6 a.m. I went to my day job, and then I was sitting again for 6 hours trying to fix something and losing focus. So this was all part of the journey that I am very grateful for to look back to.
OWC is your one-stop shop for flexible drive storage and connectivity solutions for your studio. The Mini Stack STX for your Mac Mini adds 2 additional drives over a universal SATA HDD SSD bay and an NVMe M.2 PCIe SSD, plus 3 additional Thunderbolt USB ports. The OWC Thunder Bay 4 chassis, built like a tank, gives you 4 hot-swappable 2.5-inch RAID configurable drive bays, plus an extra Thunderbolt 3 jack for daisy chaining up to 5 devices. Or check out the OWC Gemini Thunderbolt 3 dock with 2 RAID configurable drives and 7 ports of connectivity, including a front-side SD card reader, 1 gig Ethernet, 2 USB 3.2 ports, a dedicated display port, and an additional backward-compatible Thunderbolt port. Get your studio connected with the Mini Stack STX, Thunder Bay 4, and Gemini Thunderbolt 3 dock at macsales.com/rockstars. Use the custom link in our show notes because it's a great way for you to help support this podcast. So thanks, Rockstars. I am totally blown away with Isotope Ozone, Rockstars. I've been mastering a lot of my records recently, and Ozone makes it so easy for me to get a fantastic sound. The mastering assistant will help you get started by measuring your track and suggesting all the settings you need to get a professionally targeted result based on the genre and EQ curve of your choice. You can even reference a specific song if you want, using simple yet sophisticated modules like Clarity, Impact, Low-End Focus, Stabilizer, Imager, Exciter, and Spectral Shaping, along with powerful dynamic EQ, compression, and limiting. You simply adjust the settings to your own taste, and it sounds incredible. And don't get me started on Master Rebalance, which literally lets you reach into the mix and manipulate the vocals, bass, and drums at the mastering stage. My bandmates are pretty demanding of my mixes, but now when I send off the masters for approval, I get comments back like, "Holy shit, pristine, damn good mastering, crystal clear, dude, you're a wizard. Finally, I love my singing, and the drums and bass sound huge." Check out the newest Ozone, RX, and all the other great plugins at isotope.com and use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off. Hey, Rockstars, we're back now for the jam session, aka the second half of this show. My guest today is Ady Parzentny. Now, do you pronounce it Ady or Ady? Or sort of a little bit, it depends on who you're talking to, right?
Exactly, depends on which country I am. Yeah, so Ady is really good.
Okay, good. You ready to jam? Shall we jump in?
Let's jam. Where's my guitar?
All right. Well, good call, man. I got one right here. Come down off the wall. And I don't think Zoom will even let us hear it because Zoom is so expert at deleting the sound of anything that's not the human voice.
Yeah. No, it works well.
Right on.
Hey.
So, in doing this podcast and 400 plus interviews, one of the things that happened that I was sort of not really expecting at first is just that I learned a ton by focusing and talking to all these people like yourself, all these other producers. I've just learned an enormous amount about making records, and my records are better than ever now. And I hope that's true for all you rock stars who are listening to this too. But what about for you, Ady? Did you discover that doing all these field recordings just taught you an immense amount, just learning from all these people and these musicians?
It did. It absolutely did. Because this is a field, I was really grateful for it. Like at the beginning, it was hard for me because there is no YouTube channel how to record a 15-piece Andalusian band, You need to figure out
there is
stuff.
Now.
There's now. On Promix Academy, you can actually see how I did it. There are now all the courses about it. I am beyond grateful for the opportunity that I could just figure out stuff with the bands there. And there are instruments that I never saw in my life before. And just asking, again, this human factor, asking the musician, "Hey, you ever recorded in the studio?" "Yes." "Where does the other engineer put the mics, actually?" And I learned so cool tricks, like on the cajon, to put the pillow inside the cajon and then a kick mic through the hole for the low end.
Sitting on the pillow.
Because the cajon have a hole. Sitting on the pillow, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And these are tricks that I learned. And the second thing, to really listen to a band if they are able to record live, and how to record the band live. That it's so much fun, like the pros and cons of recording and just these communications. I learned a lot as a human and also a lot as an engineer.
Yeah, no, it's one of the great things to discover in a session is there's a good chance that whoever you're recording may have recorded before. And so you have a secret weapon right there. You can just ask the musician, hey, where have you mic'd up your instrument before and really liked it, you know? And I mean, if they haven't recorded, they might still have some ideas about their own instrument and what sort of sounds good to them. But it's a great way to just sort of like get a new idea for how to record everything. I mean, just ask. I mean, I remember working with Dave Jakes, a bass player here who played with John Prine, and he was like, "Oh, you know, we've taken a small diaphragm and we pointed up the fretboard, and then we put another one sort of on the F hole." And I was like, "Okay," so I tried that, and it sounded great. It was like one of the best bass sounds I'd ever gotten. And so, like, don't overlook that, rock stars. Don't be afraid to. Don't ever be afraid on a session to pause for a moment and say, let's imagine I don't have a clue what to do, and I can ask people what they think, because you know, you might get some really, really great insights into recording. Now, granted, the flip side of that is making a record by committee is not very much fun, but especially mixing, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So let's see. What do we want to ask? So there's so many sessions you've done. Another one that was really, really cool, the Narragansett Orchestra. This is another, I think it's like that, and there was another one was it the Nova Folk Orchestra or something like that? Yeah.
Nova
exactly. Folk Ensemble in Armenia. Both really amazing orchestral settings, but a folk orchestra. So very different instruments. Some of the instruments are the same. Yeah. Even in Andalusius, I mean, I was like, oh, there's a banjo in there. Oh, there's a melodica in there, you know? Yeah. But then there are a lot of, and electric bass, but there are a lot of things that are unusual too. So talk about all those and talk about these sort of orchestral stuff like that, and how you found, you know, more cool ways to record it.
I love the variety of all the instruments. This makes my life really exciting, you know? In this Armenia project, when we went down there with Kali Audio, John and Charles came with me, actually.
Cool.
And yeah, it was super cool, man.
Where did you guys go for that one? You went to Armenia?
Yeah, this was in Armenia. So we stayed with John's family. He's Armenian. And he actually organized us, all the musicians. We made like 12 recordings in 10 days.
That's great.
Yeah. And man, how the Narragansett Orchestra and the Nova Folk Ensemble, it was in the same place. So the Narragansett Art Institute is providing creative spaces for musicians, painters, dancers, so they pass on their tradition. And this is the beauty that I learned on the recordings, because the importance of music, there is even
I saw that.
There was a painting.
The sound, Rockstar's, the sound absorbing pillow in the back behind him on the couch just fell over in the studio. So true studio stuff going on here.
True studio stuff. Actually, it was the painting for my girlfriend, but nothing happened.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe it was a sound panel there.
No. So the cultural importance of music, this was a huge eye-opener and lesson to connect me back to my punk times. This was something where I just felt this pure love of music and the importance to share a message and the importance to share the culture, because what we recorded at the Narragansett Art Institute and the Nova Folk Ensemble, I thought it's a contemporary track, but it's 100 years old. Made by composer Komitas, who made over 3,000 tracks in his short lifetime. Yeah, he transcribed them and he composed his own ones. So these were actually tracks from Komitas that were passed again to the next generation.
Well, what was so encouraging for me to watch all the videos and hear this variety of music that you recorded, a couple of things hit me. One is I was reminded that we go through all this stuff as engineers. You know, we think about the technicality of music and we think about the correctness of how we record. But I was also reminded that at the core of it all is this idea of like, does the music move me? Does it make me feel something? And that's a big part of all the music that you did, is it's very, very emotional based music. It comes right from the heart. And that's what makes it so appealing to listen to as well. And then also the other part of it was just this idea that, sometimes we look at the world and we think, oh no, everything in the world is becoming, the same gray, kind of like the background in my studio. It's like, oh, we live in a world of social media where everybody has the same influence and everybody wants to make the same boring music out there. And then I see what you're doing and recording, and I'm like, yes, no, they don't. They want to make cool music. They want to make music with people that is awesome and that feels great. And instruments are, whatever kind of instrument people are making out of stuff in places, skins stretched over drums and strings made out of wires and whatever, and so it's really encouraging.
Yeah, man, I love it, this variety. I mean, yesterday I had a conversation with the World Music University in Germany. I'm going to become a guest docent. So we made a full program there for the students.
That's great.
And I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And the funny thing is I wanted to study there, and they said, you know what? With this experience, you can actually teach.
That's great, man. That's great.
I'm like, oh my God. Okay, let's do it. And they just told me there are people from all around the world, from every culture. And from this travels, when you go to Africa, every region has its own rhythm.
Yeah.
Even every craft have its own rhythm. Like the blacksmiths in Guinea, they have their own rhythm. And this rhythm have more sub-rhythms. It's like, it's endless. And now when even the traditional music merges with modern music, stuff that we also record, like I recorded Tassut Animal. This is a huge band in Morocco in March 2023, just a few months ago. Before LA, actually, I was in Morocco. And
that's great.
Man, now this traditional music and the modern music mixes, and there are, again, endless possibilities of creativity. And I love that they are not thinking inside the box. They are really thinking outside the box, what liberates them.
Yeah.
But their tracks are playing in the whole country, man. Or,
And that's cool because just to kind of add perspective, I think sometimes here in the US, we go, this might sound very narrow-minded, but it's just true. It's like you go out to eat in a restaurant somewhere that the food is from another region of the world, another country. And sometimes the music that's playing in the background is both very cool, but it's also like, oh, it sounds like they're just programming all these instruments and then somebody sings over the top of it. And so sometimes I get the impression that music being made all around the world is a little bit homogenized because everybody's using the same kind of, samples and dance music tracks behind it. And it's cool hearing what you recorded because I'm reminded, no, that's not true. That might be the music that's making it all the way to a restaurant to get played here. And again, apologies for having such a sort of a narrow sounding perspective, but I think it really it highlights, what's going on. It's what our perspectives are. And it's great to hear people just making music that's so cool together. We've had other guests on the podcast too. Simon and Greg Record the World.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Great stuff. A group, Jesse and Jonah Marks from The Touch of Sound. They were going around and just recording sound samples. So they didn't even focus on music all the time. Sometimes it was morning prayers in different parts of the world. Sometimes it's just the roar of a lion out in the jungle, things like that. And then also Ian Brennan, who's done a lot of recordings in Africa as well.
Wow, yeah.
So a lot of cool stuff, rock stars to check out. But let me give it back to you, Ady. I do a lot of talking, and everybody reminds me to shut up and let the guests talk. So tell us.
Oh man, you have so much knowledge, and I love your perspective. Also, it's very important,
Well, thank you. But tell us more about some of the sessions that were really exciting for you. When did you ever go into a recording space and you're like, oh my God, how am I going to figure this out? How can we get this to work? What were some of the big challenges for you?
Yeah, man. One of the challenges, it was with the band Bondeco. I love the guys, man. It's a band from Portland, Maine, Portland.
Oh, cool.
And they hired me they were flying to Albania with their band. And I was driving from Poland with my car. We rented a villa that I never saw before to make their debut EP and 5 music videos and a documentary, which is released now. So everything is out there. You can see the mini documentary and listen to the album. And this was really challenging because I never saw the villa. They paid a really good amount of money to make a good sound there. And it was very reverberant. Like the band is also, these are 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing, who is the band? 3 guys. 1 super loud djembe from Guinea. Namori Keita from the famous Keita family.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible djembe player. Then you have Ili, who is 71 years old, playing the accordion and singing.
I think he said that he knows every Albanian music, folk music, right?
Yeah, he has
like
400. Yeah, he has 450 tracks in his head. Because
and he plays
his
accordion and sings, and he looks cool.
He's so cool, man. Like once he's on stage, you see his posture is changing, and he's like, the dude. Now we're gonna dance.
That's great.
He's amazing. And then Orson is there, so with his acoustic guitar and also the vocals. So it's 3 huge different instruments. There is no bass guitar, and it's not a typical setup at all. How to make it work, in a reverberant room. Like
now, of course, there's no bass guitar, but guess what, Rockstars? We got that's what all those buttons are for on the left side of the accordion.
Exactly. So we had to record them live. We don't wanted to overdub them. This was the request. Like they loved the sound from our recordings. They couldn't find the record studio in their area. So also for the feeling, they wanted to go to Albania, rent this place, and do this together.
That's great.
So we had to put Namori to the other end of the room so he can face the band, so they can see each other. But this room had a lower ceiling, while the 2 other guys, they were sitting opposite from each other. And the djembe was bleeding in.
Djembe is a little bit of a loud instrument, Rockstars. If you haven't recorded it, djembe gets in all the mics, kind of like the tambourine.
Definitely. The tambourine is everywhere, man. Yeah. This was also the hardest part in the Andalicious recording, to get the tambourine out. It was in every mic, man. It was just piling up, so what to do? The djembe was also in every microphone, but at least I could, by separating the band, also separate the frequencies. Yeah. Because in the couple, it was like the room with the lower ceiling going into the room with the higher round ceiling. So the bass didn't sound good at all there. But like this, we could control it a little bit. And I had to ask them a little bit for the dynamics, because in Guinea, it's a tradition to play as loud and strong as you can.
Right.
And they do it.
Well, because, that the drum-based music is also, like, it also comes from a communal thing where people gather together, and you're literally like supposed to hear the music a mile away, and come to the village center so that you can come join the band, so you're supposed to hear it. But exactly. It's one of the things that I learned about recording djembe too. When we were recording Nyamakuma, we were in a 100, 200-year-old stone church in Roxbury, and I would have close mics on him, but we also put up room mics. And I had Earthworks mics and PZM mics on the back walls and stuff. And I quickly learned, I was like, oh, wow, like there are sounds that come out of this drum that you need a close mic for, but then there are some serious low-end sounds that you only get if you've got the mic all the way across the room, and it sounded like a giant 808 kick drum, and it's like, boom,
Lich, you got it figured out, man. You got the secret of how to record those instruments. It's the room mics, where you have all the low end and all the tasty sound. It's not the close mics. And this is, wow. Yeah, you got it.
So did you find yourself using the other musicians' mics, like the singer's mic and stuff, to try and actually capture the low end of the djembe all the way across the space and get that in phase? Or did you think about it differently?
Inevitably, the djembe was there anyway in the vocal mics. So it was, again, a different mixing approach. And I had to work with the mic position. Means the vocal mic, it had to cancel out the djembe like from the back. So they were like almost like opposite from each other. So I had actually, and this is the other beauty of bleed, when you get the right bleed, everything will be all right because it just adds up.
Yeah.
So in this way, it took me like a half day to find the right sound with them. But once I had it, we just recorded the full album. And,
now, did you also notice that sometimes bleed is subjective? I mean, maybe the first time you mixed stuff, you tried to add a lot of compression to things that you then backed off. But that's one of the things I've discovered. Sometimes you think you've got isolation on a sound, but then you go to compress the sound a lot and you're like, oh, this isn't isolated at all. And other times you add compression and you're like, oh no, there's too much bleed. And then you're like, wait a minute, what happens if I just take the compression off? And you're like, oh no, that's fine. So it's a very relative,
it is
judgment call.
It is. This is why I'm like repeating. It's also a different mindset of mixing. It's a different approach because you just listen like, okay, I put up the vocals now. Okay, there is some djembe. Probably I don't need so much djembe from the other mics. Like the microphone becomes the EQ, and you can compression. You need to compress less, but on the first side. But on the other side, if you want more djembe from the vocal mic, you just use more compression, and you have best of both worlds. So it's really it can be a little bit tricky, but luckily after this 5 years, I got like a catalog of solutions.
So you started to talk about it before, but we didn't quite finish. You talked about the challenge of your monitoring situation. So what did you learn about going out and doing these remote recordings? If you were going to tell somebody, this is how you do it, what would you tell them to get? Would you tell them to bring a pair of speakers? Do you tell them to bring headphones, any particular headphones? What about, the difference between making a judgment call while the musicians are playing versus making a judgment call after you record it?
I love that question. So one of the most important lessons is the monitoring solution for me. And once I changed my headphones from a particular brand that is affordable and good, I burned 3 of those headphones. And now I'm using Olo Audio. They are great. So
I've got those. Those are fantastic. Which ones do you have?
I got the open back S4X and the closed backs with, I think I can mix in Dolby Atmos with them, with immersive audio possibility. The S5X, and they are just gorgeous. And it's so important. I thought, Ady, why don't you invest it in good headphones? Because it's my job as an audio engineer, to record reliable. But I tried to save money on just a pair of headphones. At the end, I burned 3 of them, which is the cost of the Olo Audios, of a good one. So if you really can, I mean, I don't say that you can't mix on those headphones. I did also for a long time. But as much as you can, as a recording engineer, try to invest in your listening solution that you can accurately hear back what's going on. Because after I changed the headphones, the guessing game of, is the snare in the right place? Are the vocals loud enough? All this guessing work stopped. So I'm working faster actually. And I really hear what's there, what's really, really helpful.
That's cool. So did you also find that with the Olo S4X headphones that you were listening and making judgment calls at a lower volume? Did it change how loud you listen?
No, I love to have it as loud as possible.
So I did a lot of mixing at my Bonnaroo Haber studio. For 15 years, I recorded bands at the Bonnaroo studio, and that was a very live experience. In fact, the band was all playing live in one room. I'm mixing on a console with headphones on while they record, mixing it down to 2-track. So I had to learn how to make all those judgment calls. And one of the things that I found interesting was turning the headphones up or down in volume to judge whether the vocals were loud enough or too loud. Because I found it was easy to actually mix the vocals too loud in headphones.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered if that was something that you learned about. Did you find that there was a lesson on how to judge whether the vocals are at the right spot?
Just by doing it like 1,000 times and listening also music like privately with the same pair of headphones. The same with speakers. Like I got now speakers as well to double check what's there. Actually, I prefer to mix on speakers, and I got my Kali Audios IN8s. They're
Nice.
great.
Are those smaller ones that are portable or big ones? Which was
No, you know what? This is my only luxus in my car. Like everybody is laughing because I have a studio and everything is tiny. Except my speakers, like I think these are the biggest they can have. I just love big speakers, and when writing songs, composing songs, or also recording, and after mixing, I want to hear them loud and feel them. So, this is what I usually use for monitoring solutions. But
cool.
Yeah.
And then what about setting those up in a place? Are you talking about setting those up in, you're recording a band in a house or outside and you'll still set up the speakers and listen?
When we record, so one day is usually there to get the right sound. And with the right sound, I want also the band to listen with me in the same room. That's why the speakers are important. I don't want to give them my headphones and, hey, now you can hear.
Right. You want to hear at the same time. So speakers allow everybody to do that.
Exactly. And people feel the music differently when they are on loudspeakers.
Yeah.
So for me, it's really crucial to have them with me in the car, and they help with the music videos later as well.
Right. Because you can play the music and everybody plays along.
Especially when you have the djembe again. We tried the small Bluetooth speaker, but no chance.
Because they don't feel the djembe. Right. And
exactly.
I see what you're saying. If they're playing along for the music video, the djembe that they're hitting in the music video is so loud that they can't even hear the little Bluetooth speaker that they're supposed to be playing along to.
Exactly. That's the thing.
That's funny. Atom Audio introduces the all-new A-Series line of monitors, featuring the XART accelerated ribbon tweeter design, built-in DSP-based room correction, and speaker voicings to allow you to customize your Atom Audio monitors to your control room. The A-Series will rock in any studio. Small studio spaces or immersive multi-speaker configurations are perfect for the A4V or the new A7V, the next generation of the incredibly popular A7X. Mid-size rooms and narrow spaces will love the low profile of the A44H, expanding on the A7V sound, or the A77H, a true three-way midfield monitor delivering rich, spacious sound. And bigger studios will love the A8H, a three-way speaker and the pinnacle of the A-series that delivers extremely accurate sound required for critical listening environments. Get the Atom Audio monitors and subwoofers that are right for your studio with an extended 5-year warranty at atomaudio.com. What do songwriters, music producers, DJs, EDM, TV, and film composers all have in common? They all need incredibly cool sounds that instantly transport the music to the style that they want. This is why Native Instruments is your ultimate toolkit with a massive library of sounds. Whether you want to create hip-hop, indie pop, classic rock, meditation music, pumping dance floor beats, or full orchestral arrangements, Native Instruments Complete Bundle offers you everything you need, from drums, loops, and beats to wild synths, ultra-realistic strings, and vintage electric bass, guitars, and keys. The list goes on and on. I personally love recording real bands in my studio and adding cool drum samples, synths, and futuristic keys from Battery, Contact, Massive X, Guitar Rig, and Hybrid keys, for example. Plus, it's super fun to create a string section for a rock rock band. Come on, go get Complete Start for free today with a bundle of 2,000 sounds and 6 gigs of samples over at nativeinstruments.com and use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off. Some restrictions apply. Okay, so 2 questions. One is, when you set up the Kali audio speakers to listen with the band, are there any lessons you learned about how to set them up in a strange place so that they work well enough for this, and so that you don't have problems in the room or anything like that cause you to make bad decisions?
No, because they are mainly for listening back and hear if there are any issues, like directly. I put them usually in front of me, or when there is a couch, like that everybody can sit on the couch and listen to them back.
You just put them really on a table or something like that?
Just put them on a table or somewhere. And what I encounter with them, they have like EQ switches in the back. So I can do easy EQ corrections. And most of the time, for now, in every room we wear, they somehow just sound amazing.
That's cool. And then what about carrying speakers around? I mean, like when we even move speakers and put them on, somewhere else in the studio, I'm like telling my interns, I'm like, make sure you put these things where the cones are like facing each other. Nobody's going to accidentally poke a hole in that speaker. What do you do about being on the road and keeping a speaker safe? Do you have special carrying cases for them or anything like that?
No, they're in the original package. So I think
just keep the box, right?
I keep the box, man. There is they are protected in the box, and I put blankets over them. And my car, like a camper van, usually over the driver's seat, you have this sleeping cabin.
Yeah.
But the sleeping cabin became our artist basement. So we have our art supplies there. And the speakers, they fit perfectly, like when I put one after the other. So they are not moving.
Yeah.
They're not moving at all. They are super protected there. And it's just safe. I just take them out of the box again, put them back. The cones, they're protected with the styropian.
Styrofoam.
White.
Yeah.
Oh, styrofoam is called.
Yeah. So good pro tip, Rockstars. Just a reminder, this is like, van loading 101. You learn this stuff a little bit when you're loading a van for band stuff. But the real danger is when you hit the brakes fast in the car. Everything that's not held down really well, it's going to come flying forward. So that overhead thing, that's kind of a smart place, because if you hit the brakes, it's already up against a wall. It's not going anywhere. If you put all your stuff in the back of the car, you always run that risk of things flying forward. God, that was so scary. I remember we used to have like heavy mic stands and things up on top of all the stuff, and it's like right behind your head. And I'm like, God, if we had an accident, that thing's going right through my brain. I guess it'll be the last mix I ever listened to.
Oh my God. Yeah, man. It is. I was also a roadie for a long time, like in the O2 Arena in Berlin. So this helped me also a lot, how to pack the car in the right way.
Yeah.
And how to carry stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Put all the heavy stuff forward against a front wall, especially in a truck or something like that. Okay. So now I'm going to flip the next part of this question back to headphones for a sec. On the one hand, you have this question of like making sure you bring great headphones for yourself for listening while you're recording, while you're mixing. And in fact, that reminds me of a funny anecdote Adam Long once told me, because he used to do a lot of remote recordings, and he was like, how do you listen? I mean, you have to turn the headphones up louder than the band to hear what's going on in the headphones. It's a little crazy. And he said once he put headphones on, he wrapped 4 towels around his head, around the headphones, and then put a milk crate over the top of his head to close it all down, just to isolate himself from the band. I was like, all right, that's dedication. But the other part for headphones, and the other part of my question is when you're talking about headphones and the musicians. So when you're going and recording these musicians that are doing sort of traditional ensembles, maybe they're partly electric bands, maybe they're very acoustic bands, and they know how to sound. But as you know from doing bands in the studio, when you start recording a band in a studio environment, it can start to mess with their sense of center. Like, what is the sound? You put headphones on a musician and all of a sudden they can play very differently because they don't hear themselves in the same normal way. So did you find that experience when you're doing all these field recordings? Did you ever find that you had to be careful you didn't, mess up their ability to tell if they were performing properly? And what did you learn from that?
Definitely. Especially the traditional bands, they are so sweet. They got so excited. And also, I try to keep it as natural as possible. Because once I get out the headphones for everyone, and this was a big lesson, like I get out the headphones and we do all the stuff and the professional setup, they get scared. Like they are super nervous. They're not used to it,
Yeah.
So over the years, I like the first month, I'm like, okay, no headphones, just do what you do usually. And I just put some mics, sit where you want to sit, and do your thing, I just capture it and keep it easy. Because when at the beginning, when I tried to make it this little bit over the top, even a little bit too much, then everybody was confused. Yeah, when you try to implement all those tricks and so on. So it was really just to be yourself, breathe in, stay conscious, keep it natural, hit play. And then mainly we had like 1 takes, 2 takes. While when I put them headphones and started, for example, to give some feedback about music that I don't really know, it just confused people. And then we needed like 13, 14, 15 takes. or we had the cajon. And I thought it sounds broken. I thought it's broken, and Hafid was playing with it from Dara Tribes. He was playing with it, and guys, I think the cajon is broken. Like the sound it sounded like a feather, like a bion. But I didn't know. And everybody went in panic, like, oh my God, my cajon is broken? What are you saying? And they were searching and taking it, and the session got like delayed. I'm like, oh my God, what have I done?
And it turned out that was actually just what a cajon sounds like.
That's the sound.
Yeah, because you hear that, because it's got the snare things in there, and you hit it and it goes.
Yeah.
And if you're not used to that, you're like, what is that? That's so strange. And then some of the other instruments, I mean, you've got so many unique instruments too. There were a lot of hammered dulcimers. There were of hand finger-picked dulcimer harps. I don't even know what you call them. There were some really incredible double reed instruments. Like the, what were the guys?
Duduk.
Yeah, there was maybe that was the name, but it was also like the folk band that was live at Noravank at the church in Armenia.
Oh, yeah.
And what a beautiful wind instrument he was playing there. It was incredible sounding.
Yeah, that was the duduk, the Armenian duduk.
That's duduk. Okay, great.
Exactly. And
yeah, you don't want to make the duduk sound like doo-doo when you're recording. You got to be careful with that one.
We were so lucky, man. We were so lucky that we could record in this monastery. It's a monastery from the 11th century. And we placed a band there, and the priest wasn't so happy about it. There is a documentary about this Armenia trip, how we handled it. It was great, and after a while, the priest allowed us to record 1 track or 2 tracks. And the instruments played there is the tar. This is an instrument also common in Iran.
Beautiful.
It's like a string instrument.
I love that thing. It's like a figure 8 body. And like just a great sounding string. Is it a fretless? Or does it have frets on it? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I think it have frets, though.
Okay.
I think it have frets. And this was very special because it was a stone church. So the stones act as a natural compressor.
Cool.
So the sound that you hear, I don't even know if I used any EQ there. I don't think so.
A very beautiful, warm tone on those recordings. So, I mean, that begs the question, what are some of the pros and cons of recording live in these spaces? And is it, you recorded in clay houses, you recorded in stone churches, you recorded in rented villas. What are some of the things you learned about seeing a space for the first time and figuring out how to record? And is it the kind of thing where, simpler is better?
Yeah, simplicity is key. And listening to a room, how the room interact, and a little bit understanding frequencies, how they walk. I love this. I call it like, it's the inspiration from Albert Einstein, his mind experiments. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm just seeing the room. I see where can I place the band and how would the sound go? Where would the low frequencies go? Where are the low frequencies to not cover any other low frequency instruments? For example, the bass covering the kick. And I think the pros about it, especially in folk music, is people are relaxed. People are in their natural environment and just doing what they do every day. Just that now a couple of mics are there and the camera is pointing at them. And this is absolutely the beauty. The cons, for example, for film music, you don't have the BPM. So maybe it's not so suitable to monetize it or sell it, let's say to film and TV or for sync. This is one of the things. The cons, if I would send it to another mixing engineer, they would think like, what the heck? Like, what's with all the bleed? What should I do?
This?
Yeah. The pros also, again, it's like, and this is what I want to encourage people to get a little bit away from the YouTube and just try stuff out, because you really learn. This is like the last big step to start a career doing this, by learning by doing and messing up things and how to handle it when you stop recording or when you forgot to record the take, or deleting stuff or losing files, and all those things.
Oh, like forgetting to hit record at the beginning of a podcast interview.
Yeah.
Like I did. Yeah, no, I don't remember if I said this, but what's so funny is I actually, for this, I'm recording in 3 places. I'm recording on the sound devices, I'm recording in Zoom, and I'm recording in QuickTime to make sure I've got it everywhere. And yet somehow I managed to not hit record on any of them when we first started. So learning. I'm still learning.
I'm still learning. We're always learning, man. I love, because this music field, it goes forever. Always you open always a new box. For example, like you want to learn how to make R&B, you open a new huge box, where you can learn for 10 years again, like who started with it and go back to the roots. And this is the beauty. Another thing is what's important for me. I'm a Gemini and I love variety. So of course it's beautiful to travel around, discover countries. And I'm at the core of a culture. I'm not a tourist when doing this. We are there to give something back to a country.
Yeah.
In a way, to experience the country in another way. We are experiencing it. We are directly by the musicians, by people who show us different places, by people who show places that are relevant for me, like art galleries also, or hey, you need to meet these dancers and see that. I just love it. And one thing that's very important for me, just to share it now, because we did support during COVID, but I don't see it like as heroes or in a heroic way. It was more exchange and building a family, being together there, because the people everywhere, they can easily support themselves. It's just a way of respect from my side to exchange.
Yeah.
And learn. We are learning from their country, from their culture, and I do what I can do best. And in this case, it's recording and creating something together.
I think it's great, man. I think a lot of people just, buried their head in the sands, and I applaud you for going out into the world at that time and meeting people and making music and doing beautiful stuff.
Yeah, it was not planned. Yeah, it wasn't really planned. Like we were there, and 3 months later, the lockdown happened, and we decided to stay there.
Yeah,
and
that's great. All right, so let me see. Oh shoot, I got so many questions in front of me. I'm trying to just figure out which one to ask you next. Oh yeah, here you go. The secret, what to you is the secret to sustainability in traveling and recording? So I know, if you did these on a trip and then come home, maybe you get some rest time in between. But I do know that traveling, recording, when I was doing it, I was much younger. Of course, we stayed up till 3 a.m. drinking beer and smoking cigars and having a good time at that age. I was, 20, 24 or something like that. But what did you find about the secret to being able to travel, record, not get wiped out from too much activity and all the intenseness, even just the loud sounds, drinking, drugs, anything like that? What are some lessons you learned about being able to go back to work every day and bring something positive and not get exhausted?
Oh man, I love that you're saying that, because I don't drink alcohol. I don't take drugs. Music is the thing that drives me the most. It's this is also when I was a musician, drinking was just in the way of music. So when I take it like seriously, I go there, and when we record and we are there, we create something beautiful together. I'm focused. I'm delivering on time. This is what I want, that we are collaborating, taking feedback seriously. You need to rest, man. Last year I had 28 flights, and
wow.
I saw 28 airports. This year I saw already 14 countries, and where
are you right now? I didn't even ask you where you're joining us from.
Oh yeah, we are in Poland. We just found the apartment yesterday, and it's the biggest excitement here is that I bought a basketball, and I will go playing basketball every day for 30 minutes or 1 hour.
Oh, that's cool, man. That's great.
And that's the perfect balance, like especially the last 2 months, it was Morocco. I love Morocco, man. It's so intense. We have so many friends and family there, man. I just love it. And then Los Angeles, and crossing Europe with a broken car that broke down only 3 times, And
that's great. Do you know a place called Mount Shasta in Poland?
Mount Shasta?
Yeah. No, I'm guessing you don't. There's a guy named Wim Hof, the Iceman, who lives in Poland.
Yeah, I love Wim Hof.
Yeah. So if you're anywhere near him, tell him I said hi.
Oh, you know him?
I've met him. Yeah, I've met him. Yeah, I went to one of his clinics. We're pivoting here, Rockstars, but he's known as the Iceman, and he goes around teaching people how to do this like deep breathing exercises, and then do cold immersion, and learning how to just like relax in an ice bath, for example. So it's fun stuff.
I love that you're saying that, because this is part of staying sane. Like between all this high life and also LA golden records, platinum records, and everything what's going on, it's so good to just, I wake up, man, I'm journaling, I'm grateful to being alive. This is what grounds me, what roots me. Between you, imagine, man, every day is a highlight. It's fascinating, but in a way, you have like a typical story is that you have to go back to your roots and tell the story and share and recharge your energy. And this is really important. Work like that, like journaling, gratitude. I know this is all the support that we received from people, your support to have me on your podcast and share our story, all these things, I don't take it for granted. And all the people that opened up to us and allowed us to record with them and create something, who hosted us, like this gratitude and curiosity, it's so important. And take care what you eat, man, is your fuel. It's the fuel for your body. When I would just eat crap, I would feel crap.
Do you ever feel like the time that you've spent watching YouTube videos, trying out mix tricks, and tweaking version after version of your mixes has gotten you nowhere? Have you been looking for a simple, straightforward, step-by-step process for creating a pro mix that won't take you years to learn? What if you could have a Grammy-winning mix engineer who understood all your mixing struggles and could coach you through them? If you struggle with any of these questions, then the Ultimate Mixing Masterclass is just for you. Now you can discover the proven step-by-step mix system from Grammy-winning mixer Craig Alvin for consistently creating a pro-quality mix from your home studio that will sound amazing everywhere. Listen to this quote from one of our students, David. Quote, "Absolutely the most informative and helpful block of information and mentoring on the mix process that I've ever been a part of. That was like sitting behind a mix engineer for years, watching and picking up tips along the way, but condensed into a 6 to 7 hour session." Close quote. Look, I'm so confident that this will take your mixes to the next level that if you can't get a killer mix within 30 days, I'll give you a full refund, no questions asked. So if you're ready to take your mixes to Grammy-winning quality, then go to ultimatemixingmasterclass.com and start now by checking out the free preview of the Ultimate Snare Mixing Trick. And I'll see you at the front row table of the Grammys. Cheers. I've got a couple of questions for that. So let's start with the food one, because I've been vegan now for 3 years. So for the first time in my life, I'm eating typically very differently from most people. And it made me think as you were traveling and doing all this stuff, I was like, oh yeah, it's been a long time since I did that when I was younger. When I was younger, I would have just been like, cool, yeah, I'll eat whatever. But did you find that trying to eat the way you want to eat, yet traveling and trying to also, fit right in with all these different cultures and different people, was that ever a challenge? And did you have anything that you learned from that?
It wasn't. It was actually a paradise for vegetarians and vegans, especially during COVID. We had so many vegetables, fresh veggies in Morocco. We were cooking every day, taking the time to prepare your own food. And you get invited to eat. Like, man, we were walking on a beach. There was a tent. The tent opened. There were like 8 people inside eating the tagine with chicken. Tagine is the typical food, like, come, join us. And sometimes explaining to be a vegetarian, it's...
Is that you? Are you guys vegetarian?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. No,
even mainly vegan. Like, it's just how we eat. Like my partner for 20 years, I'm now for 10 years, because the rock and roll lifestyle just made me think, eating trash, drinking, not sleeping, all the stuff. It's what makes this job not sustainable.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
So you guys so I just asked that question out of curiosity, but that's a very, very true thing for you, is figuring out what you want to eat and how to eat in all these different cultures. So that was something that you found very doable? Very
doable. And now the times change also. We are like hyper connected through the internet. So people know what is a vegetarian. And in some places, if they really didn't know and insisted, we found the perfect excuse, saying we are allergic to meat.
Right.
Then you just show, I get bubbles everywhere, like I really can't eat it. Like
That's funny. Yeah. Well, I guess you do whatever you got to do.
Exactly.
Okay. So now here's the other part of that question. You talked about going and people were so welcoming. And I found that too. When Chris and I were driving around the country with a studio in the car, generally you run into people and they're very welcoming, but it does beg the question, how did you find bands and musicians to record? And was it ever a challenge to ask them if you could record them? And is money ever a concern?
This is a really good question. When we started, of course, I didn't have credits. There was nothing I could show. So they had to trust me that something good will happen. At the beginning, it was a little bit more difficult, especially with bigger known bands. But in general, they were like all open. Like when it's about music, and you are clear what happens with the music, then everything works. Like my favorite story is that we heard for the first time about the band Dara Tribes somewhere in the city of Essaouira.
Yeah, great band. I have a question about them too. That's like electric guitar, hand drums, live vocals.
Yeah. Oh, they are great, man. I love these guys. And we lived with them in the desert for almost 5 months, actually. It's a very strong connection. When we came back now there, it's just like family. Hey, this house is for you. You're going to stay here. And we just hang out and had live shows. And
speaking of recording challenges, that was one where the hand drum is also the singer. So you don't really have much of a chance to get the vocal mic, very different from the drum mic. And in fact, I think maybe it was for the video, but you had the vocal mic kind of off to the side of his voice on that one.
Definitely. Because he had such a huge voice, Belcher. And he's from the Gnawi tribe, Gnawa. And his djembe was just pure Africa. It's from West Africa, so it's very strong. So this is actually, after this recording, I decided to do live recordings and overdub vocals. So it's part of the process how we learned, because I knew like the djembe is also from a frequency range in the way of the vocals. When recording a drum kit with a bass guitar at the same time, I can somehow put the bass amp close to the hi-hat, and then it's thinking like when you had tape in tape times, like where are the frequencies that balance out each other. So I have them in this way separately. But with the djembe, because of that, we started to record separately and overdub certain elements, but at least have the groove and the core rhythm live.
So it's interesting because then it makes you ask the question like, well, when they perform it normally, it's djembe and the vocal. Does it work like that? Does it work in the normal performance setting? And is it just something about recording that makes it hard to make those two things work together? Or, for example, there are times where I've done acoustic in singing, and I thought, what happens if I just put one mic out in front of both the guitar and the voice and try and find the perfect balance for both, It's hard because you can't adjust it later, but it does, you can get a pretty cool focused sound out of a single mic like that.
Definitely. I think I made the wrong mic choice. That was the thing. That was still part of it was the beginning of our Morocco journey. So we heard that the band is in the desert. So we said, okay, let's go to the desert. We like them. And we started to drive around 1,000 kilometers. And the closer we came to the desert, people gave us tips like, oh, Dara Tribes? They are in the city, Tagunit. We're like, oh, okay, where's Tagunit? Okay, deeper to the desert. Went to the next city, to the last big city before Zagora. They're like, yeah, they're in Tagunit, go there. Going to the gas station, asking the guy, do you know this band? He's like, yeah, I would just call them. And he called the cajon player, Hafid, and they just welcomed us like we know each other for many years. Had a jam session together, built a trust, and then 2 days later we recorded and had 2 singles ready and the video.
That's great. All right, we've been going for a long time, but I still got some questions. So if you're still good, I'd say
I'm good, buddy.
Let's keep rocking for a sec. All right, so these are some questions that came in from our mutual good buddy, Chaz Root, who also introduced us. So shout out to you, Chaz. Thanks for that, man. So because I reached out to Chaz, I was like, Chaz, what do you want to ask Ady or Ady? So Chaz says, ask him how he navigates language barriers and cultural differences from his own upbringing to get the best out of artists in a recording situation. So I'm guessing that you, boy, I don't know. I know you probably speak English and German. Maybe you speak Polish too.
Yeah.
And like Europeans, maybe you speak like 4 other languages. I don't know.
Because we have to, every country has its own language.
That's great. It's so great.
Yeah. This is a fantastic question. Language barriers. In Morocco, usually from the whole band. I mean, Morocco in general, they are used to tourism. They are experts in tourism. So you find people that speak multiple languages. And usually there is one band member that speaks excellent English. We had always luck that one of the band members could speak English and translate. It was beautiful because some translation doesn't work really. And we are just having fun, just cranking up about it. It's beautiful. The good thing is you can always communicate with hands and feet. If there is really no way, somehow you can show what you mean.
Yeah.
What's so important, like another take, you can just roll your finger.
Yeah.
And somehow everybody in the world understand it. Another take,
Yeah,
even if they don't know what the take is.
Sometimes I do the finger roll to mean like, keep rolling. And then they're like, and then somebody hits stop and starts, oh, no, that was keep rolling.
Yeah.
But, it's funny because when I was in LA, the same time I saw you at NAMM, I was riding on the subway and some guy came up to me and it turns out he was from Turkey and he was trying to communicate to me. I think somebody had left a necklace on the subway and he was like, somebody left this, what should we do? And he tried to use the phone app. He had something that would translate and he'd speak into it in Turkish and then he'd show it to me. And it was so funny. He said something and he was really serious about it. And then he showed it to me and the translation was, agriculture is useless. I was like, oh man. And so I was laughing and I tried to tell him what it was. And I was like, oh, your phone just told me that agriculture is useless. And I showed it back to him and I was like, I have no idea if that's how it translated Turkish to English. I have no idea what I just told him, So there really are language barriers. And when you use these, sometimes you think like, oh, you just use the phone app. But I mean, who knows what it's going to be telling people?
I love to avoid the phone app as much as possible because not so good things can happen as well, especially like with Slavic roots. Sometimes you mean one word, but you're saying something completely different, or maybe even insult somebody. Or I was asking with my Polish skills in Slovakia, I'm searching for the shop, and they start cranking and laughing, and my girlfriend said it's szukać, that it means to make love. To make love.
It means I'm searching for a little bit of, what?
Exactly.
I'm searching for a little rock and roll.
I'm searching for a little rock and roll. So what I can recommend to everybody during these travels is just learning basic words. Like in Moroccan, it shows a certain respect that you're interested in the culture, that you're prepared, you're investing your time. Like just, hey, labas khoya, kushimizien, alhamdulillah. That is so, hey, what's up, man? What's up, brother? And then you are treated on a different level.
Yeah, that's great.
And also I started to learn Arabic, and signed up for a course to learn some more words. And it's just a way of respect. The same in Armenia when you say Shnora Galasion. These are different, for us, difficult words, but they can go a very long way.
Now, what was your personal way of note-taking for stuff like that? Did you come up with a shorthand for writing down how to say something? Would you record your own voice on your phone saying it and explain what it was to yourself so that you could like rehearse it later? Or did you just keep it all in your head?
No, I can't keep it in my head at all. It's very difficult for me. Sometimes I'm writing it down, and my life partner, she's really good with it. And Kasia is just reminding me that, hey, you said it wrong. Yeah. And then it's just a lot of practice. And actually the audible part, like I'm more learning by doing. So the more I talk with people, the better I get in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember doing a Japanese record early on.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I was an assistant, a young engineer at a studio, and they were producing a Japanese artist. And so we had to like write things down on the piece of paper for the talkback. We'd learn how to say onagai shimasu, which was meant like one more take, moichido, stuff like that. It's just these little phrases to say on the talkback mic, but it's so fun to do. And
it keeps it interesting, huh?
Yeah.
It's just amazing experience, man.
Yeah. And I mean, in my little world here, I love to learn how to, when we go to our favorite Mexican restaurant or Chinese drive-through, I'm always friendly with everybody. They're both family run. And I'm just like, how do you say this? How do you say that? And They're always really gracious about showing me stuff. I will say that trying to learn how to say something at the Chinese restaurant with those guys is a lot harder for me. I never get it right. All right,
did you always got what you ordered?
Yeah, but I usually make sure I do that in English. They already know what we want because we go there and get the same thing all the time anyway.
Gotcha.
All right, so here's another one from Chaz. Chaz says, ask him what mindset he uses, that's you, Ady, to stay grounded, focused, positive, and productive. And I guess we talked about that a little bit, but do you have more things that come to mind for you about just staying, grounded, focused, positive, and productive?
Yeah, I think this is a good tip for everyone. It's something I learned, that positivity is a habit. So the more you repeat it, the better you get in it. So at the moment, I'm doing this book, The Artist's Way, which is
great.
Just gorgeous. I love The Artist's Way. It's amazing. It's so helpful. And breathing exercises. We talked Wim Hof. Actually, I took for a long time like cold showers in the morning, doing yoga in the morning, and stay positive. I'm a big fan of Sadhguru. He have a great mix of wisdom and humor. So this is what I like. Humor is a big part of it. Don't take yourself too seriously. Like, I'm doing my work seriously, but everybody have fun around. And I try to keep it like that. Like just keep it positive, because you want to wake up and make music.
Well, the nice thing about recording some of the music that you're recording too is they've been playing it right for hundreds of years. And if you mess up the recording today, they're probably going to play it right for hundreds of years after this too. So you might get another chance to get it right.
Absolutely. This is also one thing, again, like, I do the best I can with the knowledge I have. This is what we did 2018 and I knew also, like, when I mess it up, how I can make the best with those recordings I have now.
Yeah.
Like when the mic somewhere distorted, and a big lesson was that the world will not stop spinning if I make a mistake. It's good to make mistakes. Mistakes will always happen to everyone, and it's beautiful to embrace them and see what can I learn from it, what can I change in the future to avoid them, and maybe even how can I fix it.
And it's even better to make mistakes during the sound check.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So speaking of which, a good nerding out question here. Another one from Chaz, pointing out that, and I think you mentioned this before, that you're a big Reaper user. So you use Reaper as your DAW. Is that correct?
I use Reaper for mixing and Studio One for composing, as well as Sibelius. Yeah.
Okay, great. And so what insights would you want to share about the benefits of using Reaper or even Studio One? Why do you use Reaper for mixing? Why do you use Studio One for composing?
Reaper was so I started with Pro Tools and then switched to Reaper, because for a home studio, I don't have the best laptop. It have like 16 gigabytes RAM, and it's from 2014. So Reaper don't take so much resources from your computer, and it never crashed. I must say, it never crashed. I know there is a lot of geeky stuff that you can do there, adjusting the interface. Everything is adjustable. And for me, it's a tool for me. So it never crashes. It never let me down. It always records. It saves the files in a very smart way. Also, there is always the media folder. Means I can move projects easily without losing the path. This is a very big plus for me, because I'm having I don't know how many hard drives. And now I'm actually switching to SSDs and bought a Mac Mini with the M1 chip. So it will be way easier to move the files from the HDD drives to the SSD drives. This is a big plus for me also in Reaper.
So will you take a Mac Mini even on the road for travel studio, or will you always use a laptop for that?
No, I will switch completely to the Mac Mini. It fit in my backpack together with my Evo 16 interface that I have now. It's way smaller than all the others.
Keyboard? You can just find a small screen and a keyboard, and that works great.
I have a portable screen. So it's the screen is in the size of a laptop, actually. and the Mac Mini is smaller than the laptop. So for me, it's perfect.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the Mac Mini. I have an M1 in the studio now, and it's been a lot of fun.
Sweet. I can't wait. It comes next week.
So let's go to the other part of that question about studios and portability. How do you get power for sessions? Do you just plug into walls? Do you bring batteries? Do you need, what do you call it? Generators?
Dude, this is the best question because in Europe we have a norm for electricity. Let's call it like that. I recorded in places you don't know which cable is what, and sometimes the power supply is like. Look, I don't want to kill anyone there. You know what I mean? I don't want that they touch a mic and drop dead. This is the most scary part for me when I see improvised electricity. So usually there is electricity. Sometimes you have a hum there. So I'm the RX suit is my best friend in this case.
Isotope RX.
Isotope RX is my best friend for this kind of stuff. We had record sessions on a mountain with a lot of wind. And I swear, if you don't use like really good headphones for mixing, you will not hear it. Because
I noticed in some cases you like wrapped somebody's mic with a t-shirt even.
I used my turban. I had like a turban, the sash, and we recorded the 11-piece women band inside the desert with a portable recorder. I had a portable Tascam and two SM57s. One for mainly for the singer and for the ukulele player. And there was a lot of wind. So at first I wrapped it in the turban, so the wind is not too annoying. And then I go into psychoacoustics, cutting all the low end and just adjusting the frequencies that it sounds that there is still a lot of low end, but there is not. I hope this makes sense. I'm cutting all the low end because the wind is in the low end. So we have more of the mid-lows. And then I adjust the rest of the frequencies that it still sound full and round, though it's not there.
That's cool. Yeah. You really learn how to compensate for the situation, And what's funny thinking about that mountaintop stuff is on the one hand, you get something unique. You have no walls. So it's almost like every mic sounds like a dead room recording, doesn't it?
Definitely. It's so separated. It's very hard to put it together later.
Yeah.
So what I do, I put it to the same compressor, just parallel compressing to the same compressor, sometimes heavily compressing to get something that glues. And of course, building an artificial room. But of course, you don't want too much of the reverb that it's audible because she's on a mountain and I can't put the Abbey Road studio plates like audible there because it doesn't fit with the image.
Yeah, it's really wild. But yeah, you've got that wind and other strange sounds that can get in. And then on the flip side, when you are in a room, what's so cool about doing location recording is you really get to experience what all these different rooms sound like. If you want to, if you like the room, it really can educate you on all these sounds of spaces, which is really fun. Did you guys... How often did you get to select where you were going to record because you thought it would sound really great there?
Definitely in Armenia, because we recorded it first outside. And then we're like, hey man, why don't we go to the church? The church looks great and it sounds great. Let's do it there. So this was consciously that we changed the place sound-wise. This is one of the examples. And also the Moroccan clay houses. We transformed the house for 4 days into a record studio, and there were 3 different sized rooms, which I used as a chamber, This was great. So I said, hey man, your djembe will go now. We're going to re-record it. We put the speaker here and re-record it with another mic just in this huge room. So you have a bigger sound of this djembe.
I see. So it was like a close mic on the djembe, but you could recreate the room sound like it was the only thing that was happening.
Yeah, definitely. Like it was just experimenting, playing around with the rooms we had, So I thought, when we have them, why not use them?
Yeah,
Let's
and
see
I
what we
love
can
that
do.
stuff. It's so much more fun to make records that way. We get so reliant on plugins and just like, doing everything in the computer. And it's like, that's the way we used to make records. We used to we'd reamp something. We'd send it out through cool sounds and, get whole new sounds. And we created all these really original and unique spaces for sounds, which was really fun. Now, did you guys, when you were out doing this, did you also run into other mobile recording studio people on your trip? Did you meet any other people that were out there doing anything similar or who had gone and recorded in all these spaces?
Unfortunately not. But I love to connect with all of the people, because these are very special experiences. So now we are connecting via Instagram. People are writing me, asking for tips and tricks or showing me their work. And I absolutely love it. It's a very loving community.
That's great. This podcast is proud to present Recording Studio Rockstars Academy. Are you ready to take your recording, mixing, and mastering to the next level and make your best record ever? Then visit the Academy to find the course that's right for you. Want to record killer drums in your home studio? Then check out Rockstars of Drums to learn how to record, edit, and mix pro-sounding drums with a professional Nashville session drummer in a Grammy-winning studio. Or if you're ready to start mastering your own records at home, then check out Rockstars of Mastering, where I walk you through exactly how I master my own records using nothing but plugins. Plus, I take you into a world-class mastering studio, Sterling Sound, to meet with Ryan Smith and hear how he professionally mastered my record, Skadoosh, for release to streaming platforms. That's the music you hear on this podcast, Rockstars. And if mixing is your focus, then check out my free mixing course, Mix Master Bundle, where I show you how to mix using stock and free plugins and Pro Tools. Plus, you get a look at how I recorded everything in my studio and multi-track downloads for you to practice mixing and even upload to your website if you want. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to recordingstudiorockstars.com/academy to get started now. All right, well, so we're closing questions here. We're right up near that. But let me ask you this one. If you're in these different country environments, did you see similarities or differences in the styles of like celebration music, dance music, or like even like sad ballads and things like that? Did you notice that there was uniqueness in things like tempo between different styles of music in different countries? Or did you find that there were these unifying, like music is kind of a universal language for everybody?
That's a beautiful question. Especially, for example, in Armenia, I think this was very expressive, where you have music for celebration, you have music to remember the genocide, you have, for weddings. You can hear it also a lot in Sinti and Roma music. Then you have like this up-tempo tracks when there is a party, when the wedding is done, after the kiss comes, they go up to 350 BPM and it's crazy.
350 BPM.
I don't know how they are doing it. I remember I found this book in the library in Berlin with Sinti and Roma music. And then it was like, what was it? 14 16th notes, 350 BPM. I'm like, what the heck? Like, how do you play this, And this is really the beauty and the lesson from the journeys, that the music have such an important role in their cultures that you can really hear out a sad track. Like, you don't even need to hear the lyrics because it's sad. Like La Klach from Dara Tribes, it's a love song, and I just knew it. Like a love song, like a sad love song. You can still feel it. So music in this way is really a universal language. Though the differences come also, for example, when you're in Mexico and they have the celebrating music for the Day of the Dead, that it's culturally also seen in a different way when you pass away, Then you have the phase where you are sad, and you have a place later for celebrating also and accepting what's going on, and also that there is afterlife. So it's strong with the beliefs, it's strong with the culture, and it reflects between all the cultures. Like, I think you can feel it in every country in the world. What is a sad song? What is a celebration song? What is a party song? To come to your question, like, it is a universal language.
Yeah, that's so cool. And then, there's also like the instrumental approaches to it. So you think about, modern music and the studio creations where you have sort of these, even a rock band, you have this punchy kick drum possibility. Mm-hmm. And you hear some of that in some of the music that you recorded. Like there was the one band where the guy's playing what looks like an upside down wooden gourd. And that had a real thumpy low end, a real punchy low end. Yeah. But then you have other music that is, dance, makes you want to dance. Like, I think maybe the Moroccan stuff where it's, the low end is more long notes. It's like it's in the bass and it's like in long, you have finger drums where you have the attack of the finger, but the low end is like, it's sustaining.
Yeah.
And it's just fascinating to me to see how they all evoke these emotions, but they sort of have different attitudes towards the instruments. And it made me even wonder, maybe this is a good question, maybe it's a dumb question, but like, why do some music, have metallic percussion on the top end? Mm-hmm. And does that have to do with the Bronze Age and metals coming and going from different cultures versus other ones, which maybe are a lot of wooden elements and, percussive elements that come from things made out of wood. Even in, even between Morocco, some of the hand drums, I think, are metal with a skin over it versus the djembe, which is typically carved out of wood, of a log, a tree trunk or something like that with the skin stretched over it. And it's kind of fascinating,
Definitely. At first I think there are no dumb questions, and I just love questions. And this is a cultural thing, like especially Morocco is a mix, you have the Arabic culture and you have the Tamazight culture. And I think one of the tracks that you mentioned was Tassut Animal and the song Amekras, which is a super happy, this is actually a good example. It's a super happy, uplifting track. But when you turn on the translations that we put on YouTube, it's actually about the suffering farmer and the farming life.
Wow.
But there, and it's such a huge contrast. And this instrument choice, like the more wooden percussion, they are from West Africa. It's the West African culture and it's the Tamazight culture, the North African. We have Algeria and so on. And the more bright instruments, if you see this Andalusian orchestra, for example, there was like a tambourine with little ringy things, This is more from the Arabic culture. What's coming there? For example, for the traditional music, for the dance music, you have the bandir, which we can translate like a snare drum that you hold in your hands. And to make it more ringy, there is just a rope in the back that you can tight or loosen, like a snare with one ringing shell there.
Cool.
Yeah. So, and the deep low end, what you said, it's the calabash. It looks like a half pumpkin upside down. And I bought one because it's just the fattest kick. And I want to implement it into rock music.
Right on.
Because I think this is the right low end there. It's right there, the sub bass.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because when I think about all these different instruments too, I think it's important for us to remember, as we were talking about recording in different spaces, that it's also the environment of these cultural musics and instruments. The environment impacts how the sounds sound. And so I always, it makes me wonder, it's like, if you have a lot of bright metallic things, do those tend to be in environments where it's like there's, soft stone on the walls and things like that? They kind of absorb it differently. What instruments thrive in an environment where there's hard tiles that are being used to make these houses in the courtyards and stuff like that? So,
man, I love those thoughts. Love those thoughts, yeah.
Rockstars, the best way to find out is to go click on the link, which will be in the show notes, over to Hit the Road Music, the YouTube channel, and go watch. I think you have something like 96 videos on there now. Just an enormous amount of recorded material and so much great stuff. So I really, really encourage you to go listen to the music that Ady has recorded and recording still. And I think you're going to love it. And there's lots more too. Before we get to that, let me ask you this question. I like to ask all my guests. So this is hypothetical, and you're going to take the Wayback studio machine and time machine, and you're going to go back and find young Ady, young Ady, depends on which country you're in, right? And you say, listen, I've come back to give you this one bit of advice. Here's the single most important thing you need to know to be a recording studio rock star yourself one day. What advice do you want to go back and give yourself many years ago?
Don't buy all those plugins.
Don't buy all those plugins.
You don't need them. Save this money, go out and play and have fun and record bands.
Right on. Right on.
Yeah.
And then after you do all that, then can you go buy all those plugins?
Then you can.
Then you can.
Mean, I love plugins. I'm not against it, and I love to compare them and this technical stuff. I love all the geeky thing, And this is also just quickly important for me that I'm not against big studios. I love big studios, man, and I love compressors, and I love different microphones and different sounds. Sound in general fascinates me. I love it. It's not that I'm against it. I'm just doing the location recording stuff, and sometimes also just jumping around in studios. And I love plugins, man, to test them and so on. But don't buy them when you see a YouTube video that says it will sound like 70s Pink Floyd, or this EQ sounds like this and that. I spent a lot of money on this, and I shouldn't.
Yeah. I think sometimes with these things too, it's like, don't start there. I think that starting out learning how to do the basics, starting out learning how to put mics up and record things in different spaces, get things like the phase right, understand how all these are interacting, know when to compress things and when not to compress things. I think that's really, it's key to have that foundational understanding of sound. And then when you get there, then you can be like, okay, in this case, now I know that trying that cool plugin will add a little bit of a color to something that I've already got right,
Definitely. And I'm using mainly plugins that help me to achieve a job quicker now. Because, when having a big amount of work, they are convenient. They're very helpful. They are really little helpers. But the sound, it always starts with the band in the pre-production, and with the room, and with your mic choices. And learning to listen, this will really help you. This will really, really help you to make better recordings, use less plugins later, and find the right plugins that can help you just to bring the sound that is in your mind, like helpers, like
That's
it's
great.
like another tool. Yeah,
that's great. Well, dude, thank you so much for hanging with us on Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, before you go, Rockstars, Ady has got a lot of this material to listen to, but you've also assembled it into, I think it's available for people if they want to learn more about recording, or even just take these, potentially challenging tracks and learn how to mix them and get great sounds out of it. Where do you want to send the rock stars to learn more about you, follow you, start, getting into your coursework and things like that?
Oh, that's so kind of you. So I'm having over 20 tutorials on Promix Academy, promixacademy.com, and there is a whole category, Hit the Road Music. And there you find all our courses in different genres. And it's not just about music from around the world, but in general, tips and tricks how to manage those live recordings, how to start a mix. I think the longest and biggest is with Zegro Band. It's like 5 hours. They go for $25. So this helps us also to continue with those journeys. So I appreciate it. Check it out. If you really don't have those $25, there are many free tutorials on the Produce Like a Pro YouTube channel. And if you want to follow our journey, mostly up to date, I do my Instagram every day. I'm very happy when you drop me a message, when you have any kind of questions. If you're a German speaker, I'm working with the German Sound and Recording magazine, where we are having a music theory series where you can learn music theory with us. So there is plenty of stuff there, but mainly Produce Like a Pro, our YouTube channel, Instagram channel. This is where you find us.
Okay, now on the off chance that there is an incredible band in some remote part of the world that sees this and listens to this, and they would love for you to come record them in their country, where else can they reach out to you?
You can always reach out. Like, really, the best way is Instagram. Just drop me a DM, and via email. And of course, I have a webpage, www.hittheroadmusicstudio.com, but we're going to change it soon.
Okay, great.
But generally, like, it's the longest email and the longest webpage name in the world. I think it's like it's way too long. And with Warren Huart, this guy is an angel, man. Just one big shout out to him, because
double shout out to you, Warren. I actually, before we did this interview, I sent him a message just saying, dude, way to go supporting this. This is some really amazing music. And I think it's great that they're teamed up with you guys.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for dropping him this message. We got this guy is, he's amazing. And he said, Ady, you need a new webpage. Yours is okay, and he took care of it.
That's great. That's great.
It's incredible. So, the best thing is you go to my Instagram page, Hit the Road Music, and there is a link tree, and there are all the links with videos, tutorials, everything we have.
Okay, awesome. We'll have links to that in the show notes too, Rockstars. Thank you so much for listening. And Ady, thanks for hanging with us today, dude. It was great to really get to meet you, and I look forward to, hopefully we'll be pressing record side by side with headphones in some strange location in the world one day.
You're always welcome, and general, like, people are welcome to join us, and I'm very open. I will do the opposite experience. My doors are open for you.
Right.
I'm going to share what you need to know.
Well, thanks for joining us today, dude.
Thank you for having me, my friend.
All right.
Have a good time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever now, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music. Recording Studio Rockstars would like to give a big thank you to our awesome sponsors who help make this episode possible: Lewitt, Atom Audio, Native Instruments, Isotope, Spectra 1964, and OWC. And remember, at isotope.com and nativeinstruments.com, use the coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off any plugin purchase. If you enjoyed Recording Studio Rockstars, please check out our sponsors using the links in our show notes, because it's a great way to help support this show. These are all things I highly recommend for your studio. They're going to help you make your best record ever. I would also like to thank our fantastic team here at Recording Studio Rockstars: Vlad Weselchenko, Braden Stremming, Liz Hulitskaya, and Roberto Oxman de Aragao for additional podcasts and video help. Thanks so much for listening, Rockstars, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.